Welcome to Table Talk and Tumbleweeds. We are in the middle of Lent, sixth week of Lent, last week of Lent before Holy Week, and this year we are doing Lord of the Rings as part of our Lenten reading, and really focusing on the idea of fellowship. And our theme that we want to look at this week is hope, and we are sort of right in the middle of the least hopeful part of the stories, and we are doing basically the Battle of Pelennor Fields, which is the huge battle, the Siege of Gondor, Battle of Pelennor Fields, the muster, the rite of the Rohan, the Rohirrim, and so these chapters really kind of really bring up this idea of hope in the midst of despair, and what hope means in that context. So last week when we talked, we had Aragorn heading south with the riders, with the Grey Company, picks up the dead, and he's going to go get the Southern Fleet. He's going to free them and bring them, and hopefully bring them. We don't know, or we know they don't know. He's disappeared, and we had Gondor in siege. They've sent the Red Arrow. They've asked Gondor. Gondor has asked Rohan if they will come. They don't expect. Denethor does not expect them to come.
And he has reasons to believe they won't come.
And he has reasons.
But those reasons are questionable.
Those reasons are questionable. Well, there's some good reasons, but it's overstated, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a later video. But we saw the arrival of the Red Arrow, and it's been so long, people are like, well, I've never seen one of those before. So the Red Arrow shows up, and Theoden, under the influence of both Gandalf and Aragorn, says, yeah, we're going. But
had no doubt in his mind, this is what we're here for, this is what we're going to do.
This is what we're doing. So they muster, and they get everyone together, and we'll talk a little bit more about the two stowaways when Rohan rides off. And so they're riding off, and just sort of a couple little things that aren't in the movie. The whole Red Arrow thing isn't in the movie.
There's the beacons instead.
It's the beacons instead, and so they still don't know in the movie, but in the book, the despair is deepened because the Red Arrow never comes back.
Right. There's that time that shows up in the time it takes to go there and time it takes to come back that you don't get with the beacons.
Well, but the other thing that happens, the reason the arrow doesn't come back, and we find that out when they're going to head out towards the regular road, the Rohan.
Right.
The riders are going to head by the regular road, but it's been blockaded, and they're like, well, there's no way we're going to get there. We're going to have to fight our way to get there.
And so the wild men.
The woes. Yes, the wild men show up, and they say, well, we know a different path. And when they get to the path, they discover the bodies of the men with the Red Arrow. So Gondor has never heard back that, yes, they're coming, which is the message that was sent back. And they should have heard by now, right? But they don't because the men are dead. So that's the riders of Rohan. Meanwhile, we are in Rohan. Gondor.
So we're in Gondor for this next part, and everything is total despair.
Total despair.
Everything's gone wrong. We are overwhelmed. The numbers are just not there. We still have all the women and children, which, remember, with the Battle of Helm's Deep, they managed to send the women and children away so that they are not in danger. And here they are. Yes. Everything that could possibly go wrong has, and what's worse, the Nazgul show up. Right.
So this is where you really have, and some of this is done much better in the book, but visually I think it works in the movie because in the book you really get this psychological warfare, right? So this is what Sauron is doing. So Sauron has this understanding that an enemy that has given up is an enemy that's easy to defeat.
Absolutely.
And so you have, you have Gondor. They're standing together at the wall. They're encouraging one another, right? They know that they cannot do this on their own.
Right.
They do not think that Gondor is coming because the Red Arrow has not returned.
They don't think Rohan's on his way.
They know that there are overwhelming numbers. The island, and I forget the name of the island, still nerd adjacent. The island crossing has been taken over. Faramir has escaped back, but now they've sent him out again.
They don't know about Aragorn. They don't know about the Paths of the Dead. They don't know about.
Yes, they think they're alone.
They think, and they have reason to believe it too.
And
that's really one of the things that matters here is that they're not just thinking, "Oh, poor us." All the actual evidence in front of their eyes says you're alone under siege and you're not going to make it through this.
Yes, and then they have, there's several passages where it sort of talks about it. Even Gandalf, right, that he hears about Frodo from Boromir. Faramir tells him about Frodo, and he's visibly upset. And even Pippin is like he can see his hands, and he's like, okay, this guy's really upset. And then Pippin says, oh, is there any hope? And Gandalf says, there never was much hope, right?
Not the words you want to hear out of him at that point.
There never was much hope, just a fool's hope.
Which at that point you kind of say, okay, you're doing the job of Sauron for him.
Yes.
Because you are encouraging this despair.
This despair, and there is this, you have this sort of sense where the men of Gondor, the fighters of Gondor are like, maybe they'll come. Oh, they're not coming. So you have where are the riders? Where are the riders in Rohan? This line is repeated several times. Yeah. And others, as ever, looked north and counted the leagues to Theoden in Rohan. I mean, they're going to say, okay, he should be here by now.
They're doing that if I take this many hours to make this much distance, they should be here on this time, and they're not.
And they looked as others counted the leagues. Will he come? Will he come? Will he remember our old alliance? They said. And then I have this in here because Denethor gets in his little dig, right? Yeah. Soon there will be battle on the fields. A sortie must be made. Let it be of mounted men. In them lies our brief hope. For in one thing only is the enemy still poorly provided. He has fewer horsemen. So I think this is. I think this was Gandalf's advice to Denethor and Denethor's, and says, and we also have few. Now would the coming of Rohan be in the nick of time, says Denethor, because Gandalf keeps saying they're coming and he keeps saying they're not.
Yeah.
Right, so he doesn't think they're coming. So you have this sort of despair, and this is the Nazgul, trying to say it like I'm fluent, Nazgul.
Something like that.
And I think this is when Pippin is talking to Beregond. Suddenly, as they talked, they were stricken dumb, frozen, as it were, to listening stones. Pippin cowered down with his hands pressed to his ears, but Beregond, who had been looking out from the battlement as he spoke of Faramir, remained there, stiffened, staring out with starting eyes. Pippin knew the shuddering cry that he had heard. It was the same that he had heard long ago in the marsh of the Shire. But now it was grown in power and hatred, piercing the heart with a poisonous despair. And this is something that this idea of despair is really connected to the Nazgul, the cry, the belief, right?
They are despair incarnate, which partly is because they've been turned into despair because of the rings.
Yes.
But then they spread it out.
Yes.
It becomes not just who they are, but what they do to the world is this incredible despair. And this is a tool of Sauron on purpose.
Yes.
The goal of making these men into these ring wraiths was so that he could cause despair among the peoples of Middle-earth.
And this is something that really, and again, I think this reflects Tolkien's war experience. This, you can imagine, sitting there, you're hearing the bomb, and okay, now we're fine.
Well, right? And that was part of the purpose of the V weapons in World War II, was explicitly to engage in terror. And so the V1s could be made silent, but they chose not to. The V2s could be made silent, but they were chosen not to. The point was that you are, for that brief moment, absolutely terrified.
Yeah, and I guess, you mentioned the V2, which is the Second World War, but the same sort of psychological things happened because you could hear the airplanes, you could hear, anyway. But the psychological element of warfare would have been something that Tolkien would have been intimately familiar with in his experience.
Very much.
Another one in the Dark Lord. Ever they circled above the city like vultures that expected their fill of doomed men's flesh. Yeah. At length, even the stout-hearted would fling themselves to the ground as the hidden menace passed over them, or they would stand, letting their weapons fall from nerveless hands, while into their minds a blackness came, and they thought no more of war, but only of hiding, and of crawling, and of death. So this is this psychological warfare that is being waged upon Gondor, and Denethor is doing what he can, and I'm going to give a defense of Denethor later on in one of the following videos. He's doing what he can, and especially in the books, Denethor is not a fool. He's not doddering like he is in the movies, right? Denethor is doing what he can, but the problem is that he does not believe that Rohan is coming, and he believes rightly that Gondor cannot stand alone, right?
Which is correct.
So as long as we know we're alone, despair is not
unreasonable.
It's not unreasonable, right? So he goes into this doom spiral eventually, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Gandalf resists this despair, and it's not because he thinks victory is inevitable. In fact, it's quite the opposite when he says...
Yes, but he still holds on to that hope. And one of the things we said, this was about choosing hope.
Yes.
Instead of choosing despair.
Yes.
And I think it's really interesting to see him, as he does in the book. He passes around from person to person and says, you can do this. We can do this. We can do this. And one of the things that is really interesting, at least from where I was reading it, Gandalf is, this mighty, especially at this point, because he's returned back from the Balrog fight. He is this mighty archangel figure who has overwhelming power in some ways. And he could just say, you're going to be okay, deal with it. He could dominate their will and say, hold on, don't give up, or else. Yes. He never does that.
He never does that. And
he says, we can do this, and it's the we that matters.
It's the we that matters, because there is that fellowship, that hope as a communal, very Paul. But I think also, he understands how dire it is, because even though I mean, Gandalf believes that Rohan is coming.
Yeah.
He doesn't know if they're going to come in time, right? So he's not saying everything's going to be okay.
No.
He's saying we have to hang on until Rohan comes, right? We just have to hang on, right? So he's not, and we might not be able to, but we have to try.
We have to try,
Right.
because giving into despair means we will definitely not make it.
And this is sort of back to sort of Tolkien and back to the writers of Rohan, but also back to Paul. In Paul, that hope always has it's a plural verb. We hope, right? It's not I hope, our hope, right? So you really see that communal element in it, and you get the same thing in the writers of Rohan. They are writing to what they believe is probably death,
Yep.
if not for all of them, for many of them, and they're singing, and they begin singing on the way as they're riding into this battle. And Tolkien explicitly describes their courage as spreading from person to person to person to person, and you get the same sort of thing in Gandalf. That hope is a choice, like you said.
Yes.
Hope is a choice, and it's a choice that we make together. And it's not necessarily saying that everything's going to be okay, but that I choose to be in fellowship with you, even to despair, even when the hoo-ha hits the fan, right?
Yeah, and there's something to that, and I don't know if this is worth putting in there, but I think about when we think about Rohan as they're on their way and they're singing together, the value of uniting in song. Because singing is one of those things that we should do more of, and we should do more of it together.
Yes.
And so this is Bonhoeffer's Life Together. He talks about how community singing is how we start the day, and I had a quote somewhere and I've lost it, but he says that community singing is how we live in the Word together.
Yes.
Live in the Word together is through community singing. And you think about it, we don't sing together anymore outside of churches.
Outside of churches. We should, yeah.
Churches and the seventh inning stretch at a baseball game. and when you hear Sweet Caroline, everyone goes, bop, 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 together.
Yeah.
But that's it.
But that's that moment, right? Where
you are united in this space together, but we don't communally sing.
There's that bit of fellowship that happens.
Yeah, and so when Rohan gets together, the Rohirrim are on those horses, and they start to sing. They say, okay, whatever's coming, and whatever it might be, whatever we see on those fields, whatever Nazgul come, we're going to do it together.
Yes.
And that matters.
That matters. I think the Siege of Gondor is, and this is a scene that's not in the movie, sadly, right? When the gate is broken down by, I want to say Grog, and I think of
Grond.
Grond.
You're close. Grond.
Still adjacent. When he comes with Grond, and the doors are broken down, everyone has fled, and it's just Gandalf by himself, and it's very much like the Balrog.
Yes.
Right? He's standing there.
And it's another you shall not pass
Yes.
moment.
In rode the Lord of the Nazgul, a great black shape against the fires beyond. He loomed up, grown to a vast menace of despair. All fled before his face, all save one. There waiting, silent and still in the space before the gate, sat Gandalf upon Shadowfax. You cannot enter here, said Gandalf, and the huge shadow halted. Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Go back, fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master. Go.
So I feel, once again, we're in that world where we're talking about where is the Jesus figure in this, and
Yeah.
back to the abyss prepared for you for the beginning of the world, that's a Jesus line.
That's a Jesus line.
But there's a point in there where you notice Gandalf says, you cannot come in, and he stops.
Yes.
So there's a place where Gandalf is actually not just saying, this is what I want to happen, this is what will occur.
Yes.
There's almost, I hesitate to use the word magic in it, but he is enforcing his will on the world. And for at least that moment, this Witch King says, oh, and stops.
Yes.
And that's part of him choosing. I'm going to choose what's going to happen in this world, and it is not despair. It is that we still have a hope because you're not coming in here.
Right. So then you have this, from the mouth unseen there came a deadly laughter. Old fool, he said, old fool, this is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it? Die now and curse in vain. And with that he lifted high his sword, and flames ran down the blade. Gandalf did not move. And in that very moment, away behind in some courtyard of the city, a cock crowed. So you have this really, this... Yeah, this cock crowing, which is definitely,
It's a biblical image.
It's a biblical image from Maundy Thursday.
Yep.
The cock crowed. There was a little bit more. And then as if an answer, there came from far away another note. Horns, horns, horns. In the dark they dimly echoed, great horns of the north, wildly blowing. Rohan had come at last.
Yeah.
And next time we will turn to Rohan.